From the outside, they appeared to be the ideal family, with a brilliant kid to which everyone aspired to belong, but within the walls was a household with ordinary issues. On the other hand, none could have predicted what would occur on April 1st. The family's ideal life ends when a father kills his wife and child, shocking those who adored them. The mother and father both had solid careers, and the son had a bright future ahead of him. This is something that any parent would be proud of. Before we begin this video, we would like to express our deepest sympathies to the family and friends who were severely affected by this horrible crime. We would also like to send condolences to the McGeachy's family and friends. Today's case takes us to Kansas City. Kansas City is a city located in the western part of Missouri, straddling the border with Kansas. It is situated at the confluence of the Kansas and Missouri rivers. The city has a population of around 500,000 residents, making it the largest city in Missouri. Kansas City has a rich jazz heritage, particularly from the 1920s and 1930s. Often called the City of Fountains, Kansas City boasts more than 200 fountains, second only to Rome.
My mother, who served as an officer in the United States Army, is an ever-present reminder of such sacrifices. While my mother was stationed at one of the nation's largest military installations, I had the privilege of being born in the Womack Army Medical Center at Fort Liberty, formerly known as Fort Bragg, North Carolina, home of the 82nd Airborne and Special Operations. Each time we went through the gate, I recalled the soldiers say, "All the way," which always triggered a smile from my mom.
Kansas City, Missouri was home to the well-liked and well-respected McGeachy family, Jerel McGeachy Sr., his son Jerel McGeachy Jr., and mother Domonique McGeachy. Jerel McGeachy Sr. was born on March 20, 1986. He was employed by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and held positions as an elementary school teacher in Cumberland County and a police officer in Spring Lake. He married Domonique McGeachy in 2012. Domonique, Nikki Brown McGeachy, was born December 10, 1985 in Topeka, Kansas to Michelle Dane Smith. She went to kindergarten and Head Start in Topeka, Kansas. After attending multiple schools in Manhattan and Junction City, Nikki completed her high school education in Fort Knox, Kentucky. At the University of Kentucky in Lexington, Kentucky, Nikki received her degree. The University of South Alabama in Mobile is where she also finished her Master of Science in Nursing. Nikki was supposed to receive her Doctor of Nursing Practice, DNP, from the University of South Alabama at Mobile in May 2024. Nikki was a standout athlete in volleyball, basketball, track, and field during her time in high school and college. Throughout her first year at college, Nikki also kept a 3.85 GPA. In the U.S. Army, Nikki worked as a registered advanced practice nurse, serving her country. Jerel McGeachy Jr. was the name of their son. Jerel Damian McGeachy Jr. was born August 20, 2011 in Fort Bragg, Fayetteville, North Carolina. Before relocating to Topeka, Kansas, where he attended Whitson Elementary and Wanamaker Elementary, Jerel Jr. received the majority of his education at Village Christian in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Following his parents' relocation, Jerel Jr. enrolled at Congress Middle School in Kansas City, Missouri. Jerel Jr. was given the chance to test out of the 7th grade and go to the 8th grade at Congress Middle School after relocating to Kansas City, Missouri. At about 7 years old, Jerel Jr. began to recite speeches by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Both for the speeches he recited and his powerful, assured oratory were well-known attributes in North Carolina and Kansas. Even on his own business card and Facebook page, Jerel Jr. states his goal to become the next Attorney General of the United States. When the rebellion celebrated its first anniversary in the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., in Raleigh, North Carolina, Jerel Jr. was asked to speak. Following his final statement at the Brown versus Board in February 2024, Jerel Jr spoke at numerous black historical events in Kansas and Missouri. Jerel Jr was a bright young man who was well known for his intelligence and speaking style. His parents saw potential in him just like everyone else, therefore they cherished and encouraged him. They were a wonderful family that the neighborhood respected. Although there had never been any violent incidents in their past, the community would be shocked after a well-respected family would lose their lives. On Monday, April 1st, shortly after 9:45 a.m., Kansas City police were called to a residence to conduct a welfare check following the non-attendance of Domonique McGeachy, 38, at work. When police entered the house, they found 12-year-old Jerel McGeachy Jr fatally wounded from a gunshot wound. They also found the child's mother, Domonique McGeachy, 38, also fatally wounded from a gunshot wound, and McGeachy Sr., who appeared to die as the result of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Although the investigation is still in its early stages, police are treating the mother and child's deaths as homicides and stated in a recent press statement that they are not actively looking for anyone else involved.
He said, they can brave the storm, and so can I.
First at 6, you may remember his voice delivering a poignant speech on civil rights at only 12 years old. Months later, his life came to a tragic end. And now the death of this young man and his parents are the center of a national investigation. Good evening, I'm Laura Moritz.
And I'm Chris Katz. KMBC 9 Investigates has learned the Department of Veterans Affairs says one of its police officers should never have had access to a gun, but he did. Investigative reporter Matt Fleener breaking this story right now in a KMBC 9 News exclusive. Matt.
Yeah, Chris, Laura, it's a heartbreaking case. A federal police officer killed his wife and son in the Northland, according to police, then turns the gun on himself. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs took steps to keep Jerel McGeachy Sr. away from a gun, but he got one from the federal facility where he worked anyway and used it in these shootings. A federal open records request from KMBC 9 Investigates reveals police officer Jerel McGeachy Sr. was able to get into the armory at the Eastern Kansas VA Health System in Leavenworth, even with a full order of protection, a restraining order against him. The VA had previously taken McGeachy's credentials and firearm, but even with those restrictions in place, he was able to gain access to the VA armory and retrieve a firearm. Police then say he shot his son Jerel, his wife Domonique, then killed himself at their Northland home.
Somebody definitely needs to be held accountable for this.
Family friend Chris Ware has questions. How a police officer with a restraining order restricting access to firearms was able to get into a federal armory.
Do we know how he got in there?
I may look different.
I may look different.
But I am.
But I am.
Somebody.
It was February this year. Ware invited 12-year-old Jerel McGeachy Jr. to speak to a crowd for Black History Month at the Brown versus Board of Education National Historic Landmark in Topeka.
I may look different. But I am. Somebody.
Ware brought Jerel Jr. to Topeka to inspire anyone who would listen.
Man, it's just the way he spoke.
Jerel Jr. often did reenactments of civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr.
I may be young.
I may be young.
But I am.
But I am.
Somebody.
But just a month after this speech,
I remember thinking we just lost one of our great future leaders. We did.
Ware has been mourning the loss of Jerel Jr. and his mother Domonique for the past 2 months, wondering why Jerel Sr. pulled the trigger.
That's wow.
KMBC 9 Investigates was the first to tell him about Jerel Sr. getting access to a gun at the VA's armory, even with the restraining order in place.
Man, we need to go all the way up as far as we can go. I mean, if it's that easy, this could happen tomorrow.
KMBC 9 Investigates has tried for days to get answers from the VA. Late Tuesday afternoon, the VA released records showing McGeachy used keycard access to get into the armory just before 3:45 in the morning on the morning of the shootings. KMBC 9 Investigates has also learned the VA suspended the police chief, the deputy police chief, and the officer responsible for the armory. It also launched a nationwide training for all VA police departments and an internal investigation into how Jerel Sr. got the gun.
There has to be some accountability.
Despite their seeming perfect family, reports indicate that their home life was stressful and anxious. Domonique and McGeachy Jr. both experienced domestic violence at the hands of McGeachy Sr. Domonique had filed a restraining order against McGeachy Sr. on behalf of herself and her son. It is also alleged that Jerel Sr. was jealous of his son's success and he felt like he was going above him, which is why he killed him and his mother for always supporting him. Domonique had to go through this in silence. It's terrible that the family story had to end this way. Jerel Jr. will be remembered as a bold young man who was positioning himself for success. If you would like to stay updated with this type of content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. See you on the following video.